Your egg bills keep climbing, and somewhere along the way, we forgot there was ever another way. For thousands of years, households fed thriving flocks for almost nothing. The ancient Chinese way. And when you finally see what it is, your first instinct will be to call it a mistake. I know how that sounds. So before I reveal what the ancient Chinese way actually is, you need to understand why it ever existed, because if you don't, you'll do what most people do the moment they see it. Wrinkle your nose and dismiss it. And the cost of dismissing it is the same cost you're paying right now, every single month, for as long as you keep that bag. Here is what most people never realize. Commercial pelleted feed was an industrial answer to an industrial problem: how to feed enormous factory flocks fast. It was never designed for your dozen hens. It was built for the factory floor, not for the backyard. For nearly all of human history, no such thing existed. In rural China, and in cottages and farmsteads the world over, flocks were fed on what the household already had: spoiled grain, kitchen leavings, and one practice in particular repeated so faithfully across generations that it became second nature, that turned the cheapest grain on earth into something more powerful than anything in that bag. They didn't buy a better feed. They made one from grain you could get for nothing, using a method that costs only water and patience. And the strangest part is this: the old keepers would have laughed at the idea of a secret. To them, it was just Tuesday. It was only lost the way most old skills are lost. The bag was convenient, the world sped up, and the quiet rhythm slipped out of memory. So here it is. But I want you to hold your judgment for just a moment, because your instinct is about to fight you. And if you let that instinct win, you'll walk away from the very thing that sets you free. You might be expecting an ingredient, a rare grain, a wild root, some bitter herb gathered under a certain moon. There's nothing like that here. The ancient Chinese way isn't a thing you add. It's a thing you allow to happen, and it's the exact thing every modern instinct you've been handed trains you to prevent at all costs. They took plain grain. They covered it in water. And then they let it sit until it began to sour, until it bubbled, until it smelled sharp and alive. They let it ferment on purpose. What your modern eye would call going off, spoiling, rotting, is precisely the secret. That is the twist hiding in plain sight. The most nourishing thing you can give your flock is the one thing modern instinct tells you to throw away. The ancient Chinese way isn't about buying something better. It's about unlearning the fear of something looking spoiled and discovering that what looks like rot is, in truth, the opposite of it. Now I know what that instinct is whispering. Surely sour grain can't be good for them. So let me settle it, because if you skip the why, you'll do it once, lose your nerve, and give up right when you were closest to never buying a bag again. Here is what the old keepers knew in their hands, even without the words for it. When grain sits covered in water, you don't get rot. You get fermentation. Wild, beneficial microbes wake and begin to work, breaking down the hard husks a chicken's gut can't unlock on its own. And so the grain transforms. Its nutrients come unlocked. B vitamins multiply. It fills with the same living cultures you'd find in yogurt or a good sourdough, the kind that build a strong, healthy gut. And because the bird can finally absorb what it eats, it gets more from less. The old keepers found their flocks ate roughly a third less by volume, yet stayed fuller, healthier, and laid just as well. Less grain, stronger flock. That is the whole secret, and it costs you nothing but water and a little patience. So, if you'd like the exact grains, ratios, and day-by-day timings written out plainly so you never have to guess, I've put together a simple one-page guide. It's completely free, and the link is waiting in the description. Take it, print it, pin it up in your shed. Let me show you exactly how it's done. Pay close attention here, because there is one small mistake that turns this from medicine into something you'd never feed your birds, and I'll make sure you never make it. Take any whole or cracked grain you can get cheaply: wheat, barley, oats, corn, a plain bag of scratch. Put it in a bucket or jar, cover it with water, and add a little extra, because the grain will drink and swell. Lay a cloth or loose lid over the top, never sealed tight. Then set it somewhere out of the cold and simply wait. Each day, give it a stir and top up the water so the grain stays covered. By the second day, you'll see small bubbles. By the third or fourth day, it's ready. You drain off the loose water and spoon the soft, swollen grain out for your flock. They'll come running. And the bucket you just emptied, you start the next batch in it straight away. One coming, one going, a rhythm. The very same rhythm households kept for generations, long before anyone thought to charge them for it. Here is the part no label can ever teach you, and the part that, once you learn it, means you'll never need a timer or a thermometer again. Because the old keepers didn't measure. They knew, with their nose and their hands. And this one small skill is the entire difference between feeding your flock the best meal of their lives and feeding them something gone truly wrong. Lean over the bucket on the third day and breathe in, slowly. What should greet you is sour, bright, clean, a little sharp, like fresh sourdough starter, like good plain yogurt, like a crisp apple just beginning to turn. That smell is the sound of the work being done right. It should make your mouth water, not turn your stomach. Then reach in. Take a handful. Feel it. The grains will be plump and soft, swollen with water, slipping easily through your fingers. Tender, not slimy. A faint webbing of fine bubbles may cling to them. That is life. That is exactly what you want. But, and listen closely, if you ever lower your face to that bucket and the smell pushes you back, if it's foul, putrid, like something died, if you see fuzzy mold riding on top or the grain has turned to slime, then it has truly spoiled, and you pour it onto the ground, not into the feeder. That is the one mistake, and now you'll never make it. Here is how to hold both truths at once. A healthy ferment smells alive. A spoiled one smells dead. Your nose already knows the difference. You only had to be given permission to trust it again. That, more than anything, is the generational part of this, not a recipe. The return of your own good judgment. Now you may be thinking, grain still costs something. And this is where the ancient Chinese way reveals its last secret, the one that earns that word free. Because if you only ferment grain you bought at full price, you've saved a little. But the old way was never about buying better. It was about buying less. And finally, nothing at all. The old households didn't keep a chicken as an expense. They kept it at the very center of the home, a small, patient engine that turned waste back into food. And those free sources are still all around you, if you know to look. A local brewery will often hand over its spent grain for nothing, glad to be rid of it, and it ferments beautifully. Bulk grain from a farm co-op costs a fraction of any branded bag. Your kitchen scraps, your garden surplus, the bolted greens, the bruised vegetables. And the birds themselves, given room to roam, forage half their living from the ground for free. Make the fermented grain the strong, living heart of the diet, and keep crushed eggshell or oyster shell nearby, the way the old keepers always kept grit close so shells stay hard and bones stay strong. Layer all of that together, and the bag in your shed becomes the last one you ever buy. That is how the ancient Chinese way beat egg inflation. Not by paying the price more cleverly, but by quietly stepping out of the line that charges it. And here's something worth sitting with. We saw how that fermented grain builds a strong gut in your flock. But there's one more piece the old keepers used. A single common scrap most people scrape straight into the bin without a second thought, that they treated as free medicine. They saved it through autumn, fed it through the dark of winter, and their hens kept laying when everyone else's had stopped cold. In the next video, I'll show you exactly what it is and how to use it, so your flock keeps giving you eggs right through the months your neighbors go without. It's waiting for you on the screen now. Go and watch it next. The day the feed bag runs out is not a day to fear. It never was. For longer than any of us can remember, people kept their families fed without ever depending on a shelf in a store or a price set by a stranger. That knowledge was never truly lost. It was only set down for a little while. And now, you've picked it back up. So the next time you watch the price of eggs climb, you can let it pass you by. Because you hold something steadier than any market, a small piece of forgotten generational wisdom, and a flock that needs almost nothing from the world to keep you fed. That is what self-sufficiency really is. Not living without, living within reach of everything you need. Take care of your flock, and they'll take care of you.